At first glance, this looks like a simple broken plant stem, but hidden inside is one of the rarest, most labor-intensive textiles on Earth. The artisan carefully scores and snaps the plant stem, gently pulling the halves apart to reveal a fine web-like network of fibers. These microscopic threads are drawn out and immediately rolled together on a wooden surface to form a single continuous strand of yarn. Once enough thread is collected, it is delicately wound onto geometric wooden bobbins using a hand-cranked spinning wheel, preparing it for the tension of the loom. Setting up the loom is a monumental task. Hundreds of fragile threads are individually passed through the wooden heddles and comb. The artisan then weaves the fabric by hand, shooting the shuttle back and forth to interlock the weft with the warp. The freshly woven fabric is taken to a flowing river. Washing it in natural currents removes residual plant sap and helps the raw fibers shrink and lock tightly together. There are two brilliant moments of natural chemistry in this process. First, the extraction. The fibers must be pulled and rolled while the stem is still fresh and wet. Second is the coloring. The artisan submerges the white fabric into a traditional fermentation dye vat. When pulled from the liquid, the fabric initially appears green. But as it interacts with the oxygen in the air, a chemical reaction occurs, rapidly oxidizing the dye and transforming it into a brilliant permanent indigo blue. Historically, textiles made from plant stem silk were considered highly precious. Because it takes thousands of stems and weeks of manual labor to produce just one small batch of fabric, it was historically reserved for the elite nobility or for sacred spiritual garments. Please subscribe for the next breakdown. This looks like an ordinary piece of bamboo, but inside is an ancient pocket-sized fire that can smolder for days without going out. It begins with crafting the housing. A piece of dense green bamboo is carved into a cylinder with a custom-fitted cap. The engineering genius lies in a tiny, meticulously drilled hole at the top. This acts as a manual oxygen throttle, giving the ember just enough air to stay alive, but not enough to consume the fuel. But regular wood would just extinguish. The secret is the fuel core. The artisan harvests sweet potato vines, crushing and soaking them to isolate their tough cellulose fibers. He blends these with wild reed fluff and raw cotton, creating a highly porous, breathable tinder matrix that can easily trap a spark. Then comes the real innovation, the chemistry. To guarantee the ember will instantly burst into flame when needed, the artisan grinds a precise mixture of 4 ingredients: pine resin for a hot, sustained burn, camphor to repel moisture, and a combination of sulfur and saltpeter potassium nitrate. If that sounds familiar, it's because saltpeter and sulfur are the core components of gunpowder. The saltpeter acts as a chemical oxidizer, literally feeding oxygen to the fire from the inside out, even when the bamboo tube is capped. This volatile powder is kneaded directly into the plant fibers, rolled tightly into a paper cylinder, and compressed into the bamboo housing. Once ignited with a friction drill, the cap is placed on top. The flame shrinks into a microscopic glowing ember, suspended in extreme slow burn mode. When a traveler, soldier, or scholar needed fire in the dead of night, they simply removed the cap and blew sharply into the tube. The sudden rush of breath hits the saltpeter and sulfur, instantly reigniting a roaring flame. These chopsticks look like they're made of solid gold and gemstones, but they're actually carved from bamboo, tree sap, and river shells. It begins with the bamboo, but not just any bamboo. The artisan roasts fresh bamboo over an open flame to force out its internal moisture, a process called sweating. This makes the bamboo incredibly hard and resistant to rotting or warping. After the bamboo is split, shaved, and perfectly squared, it's time to seal it. The secret to this craft's legendary durability is raw lacquer, a natural, highly toxic tree sap. The artisan carefully brushes the raw sap onto the bamboo, creating a waterproof, antibacterial base layer. This must dry slowly in a humid environment for 3 days to cure into a hard plastic-like shell. Then comes the true artistry. The artisan applies a thick layer of black lacquer and begins setting the luotian, or mother of pearl. These aren't factory-made sequins. They are tiny, fractured pieces of river clam shells. Each piece is individually placed onto the wet lacquer using a needle, creating a mosaic of iridescent color that catches the light like a prism. But the artisan doesn't stop there. He mixes pure gold powder into a specialized lacquer and coats the top half of the chopsticks, creating a striking contrast between the dark shell mosaic and the brilliant gold. Once the entire piece is coated in multiple layers of clear lacquer and left to cure, it looks like a single smooth surface. But the shells are hidden beneath the lacquer. To reveal them, the artisan uses water and a whetstone, carefully grinding away the top layers of lacquer. This delicate process uncovers the shimmering shells trapped inside. Finally, he polishes the surface with crushed pearl powder and oil, bringing out a brilliant glass-like shine. The result is a pair of chopsticks that will outlast modern plastic, a perfect fusion of nature's hardest materials and centuries of craftsmanship. If you want to discover more forgotten techniques that turn natural materials into art, please subscribe for the next video. Before synthetic fleece and electric blankets, freezing winters were conquered using nothing but raw cotton and a giant wooden bow. It begins with raw, harvested cotton. Naturally, these fibers are tightly clumped and dense. To make them warm, the artisan must introduce air. Instead of tearing it by hand, she uses a massive wooden bow. By repeatedly striking the bowstring, the intense vibrations physically separate and expand the cotton fibers. This step is crucial. It maximizes the microscopic air pockets trapped within the cotton, which is the actual secret to retaining body heat. Next, a small portion of the cotton is spun into fine thread using a traditional spinning wheel. But this thread isn't for sewing clothing. It's going to become the quilt's internal skeleton. The heavily fluffed cotton is then carefully spread out into a massive, even layer. But here lies the engineering problem. Loose cotton will inevitably clump, shift, and separate inside a quilt over time. To solve this without using chemical adhesives or heavy stitching, the artisan weaves a delicate geometric lattice of the hand-spun yarn across the entire surface. Using a large wooden pressing disc, she gently tamps down the structure. The pressure locks the yarn net directly into the cotton batting, creating a flexible, stabilized sheet that will hold its shape for decades. Finally, the core is encased in its cover and hand-stitched closed. The vibrant red floral fabric isn't just a stylistic choice. Historically, in Eastern cultures, these handcrafted quilts were essential dowry gifts, with the red symbolizing warmth, joy, and family prosperity. The result is a highly breathable, deeply insulating blanket made entirely from nature, proving that sometimes the old way is still the warmest. Please subscribe for the next video. Most people see fallen pine cones as nothing more than forest debris, but in the hands of a traditional artisan, they are the foundation of a perfectly balanced incense. It begins with the careful harvest of fallen pine cones. The artisan systematically snaps off the individual wooden scales, gathering only the most resin-rich parts of the plant. But burning raw pine wood creates a harsh, acrid smoke. To refine the scent, the scales are slowly roasted over an open fire alongside dried mugwort and tea leaves. This crucial thermal process mellows the sharp, aggressive pine resins, allowing the woody base notes to absorb the earthy, medicinal compounds of the herbs. After roasting overnight, the darkened brittle mixture is ground in a stone mortar and sifted into an ultra-fine powder. This microscopic consistency is an essential piece of engineering. If coarse fragments remain, the final incense will burn unevenly, spark, or suddenly extinguish. To transform this dry powder into a moldable clay, the artisan relies on a natural chemical binder. By soaking elm bark in water and wringing it out, a thick, viscous mucilage is extracted. Unlike modern synthetic adhesives that would release toxins and ruin the fragrance, this botanical glue binds the ingredients perfectly while burning completely clean. The resulting dough is kneaded, compressed, and shaped by hand into miniature cones, paying homage to their origin before being left to slowly cure and dry in the open air. In ancient culture, lighting this incense wasn't just about perfuming a room. It was a vital ritual for scholars, philosophers, and craftsmen, a tool of mindfulness designed to clear the air, sharpen focus, and calm the spirit during hours of deep study. If you're captivated by how ancient botany is transformed into tools for the mind, please subscribe to see what we craft next.